Oh, hello again. Hello again. Hi. Time for me to make another video, I think. I made a video a few months back about wanting to find quieter music in times that seem very noisy. And I probably have to admit that I'm still watching too much of the news, and I'm still seeking some solace in some quiet music. So I thought I would show a bit more of it today, and particularly a group of records that seem to take up a particular time for me to play, which is often in the mornings, and is partly due to having my other half, who for some strange reason doesn't like to hear anybody singing in the morning. So no lyrics in the morning is a kind of a bit of an unwritten house rule. So anyway, I have an awful lot of instrumental music, and the calmest of my instrumental music is often music which is purely solo. And solo records have often been something that I've kind of have a particular wonder for. I think if I had to explain it, I could imagine that it might be the first time I'd ever heard real instruments played. It was probably at school. The piano at school, and I had an English teacher that used to play the guitar. And I remember very clearly those times hearing kind of real instruments played in a room for the first time, and the kind of wonder of that and how beautiful that sounded. Even though school halls were kind of echoey and that heavy, there's something about an acoustic instrument played kind of in the room with you that is that's a very lovely and wonderful thing. And so anyway, yeah, I do tend to love some solo records. So I thought I'd show you some today. I picked 5 out that I've been playing recently. And the first of which is this record, which is by a Polish composer, pianist, keyboard player called Hania Rani. And this is called In Giacometti. In Giacometti? On Giacometti, sorry, Hania. And this is basically a soundtrack album to a documentary film about the artist Alberto Giacometti. And apparently Hania Rani, sorry, catch the light, show you the sleeve properly. Hania Rani, when she composed this, she went and took up residence in the Swiss Alps, the time of year that it was all covered in a blanket of snow. And you get a real sense of this being a kind of winter album in a beautiful kind of way, not in a kind of bleak way, but in a kind of sparkling, kind of frosty kind of way. The album sleeve rather beautifully is on this kind of brown coloured card with type in this blue metallic. And it was designed by Lukasz Palsinski and Adam Heron. Sorry if I've butchered that name, Lukasz. And it has a lovely insert inside the album. And the music itself is calm, and it's expansive. It's kind of reflective and somber. There are a couple of tracks that feel like they have a bit more tension, a bit more kind of underlying darkness to them. But as a whole, the album works very well. I find soundtrack albums can often be kind of a bit sporadic and a bit all over the place. But this one really kind of holds up as a work in itself. I think Hania talked about working in Switzerland when she was making this record, about the effect that this kind of blanket of white on the landscape around her had. the way the kind of perspectives shift, and small things become large and large things small, and it's not, if I was honest, it's not totally a solo album. There are a couple of hints of some cello on a couple of tracks, and a little bit of keyboard maybe in the background, but it feels pretty much like a solo album. It feels like there's kind of improvisation going on the record, and it really holds together rather well. So I'll play you a little clip of that and see what you think. Okay. So that was Hania Rani, and an ode to Giacometti, the Swiss artist. Now the next one I wanted to talk about is kind of a set of 3 albums by a composer called Otto Totland. So he started off with just this one, and then he followed up a kind of a second one. So this one is called Pino, and the second one he made was called The Lost, and the final in the kind of trilogy, which are all piano solo pieces, is called Companion, and they all have a similar design, as you can see. And the sleeve was designed by Torsten Posselt, and it's made of beautiful handmade paper with inserted bookbinding cloth, and onto that cloth is printed with letterpress, is printed foil lettering. The record is released by Sonic Pieces in Germany, and these handmade sleeves are made by Monique Recknagel, which adds a sense of craftsmanship and beauty to the whole thing, I think. Now, Otto Totland himself is a self-taught pianist, and I think his compositional style, so they're all his compositions, and the style, I think, is influenced by Norwegian folk music and early Scandinavian jazz in a way, in a very slight way. It's minimalistic music, it's melancholy, it's meditative, and it's beautifully recorded by Niels Fram at his studio in Germany. I think Otto Totland began work originally on keyboards, electronic keyboards, and moved to the piano, which he found a much kind of happier place for him to be. Interestingly, he also produces music as a part of a duo called Deaf Center. This is one of their albums called Neon City. And in this kind of context, this particular context, Otto's piano playing is a lovely counterbalance to Eric Skodvin's. He does kind of dark and kind of slightly brooding electronic pieces, and so Totland's piano is a kind of lovely counterpoint to that. The two things work very well together. But in his solo records, it's purely piano, and in that case, it's very simple indeed, and very beautiful music. It's a perfect kind of Sunday morning, just slowly coming to kind of record for me. These three records are. I found a nice quote actually, which I might read to you. His music transports you from the cacophony of night. I'll start again. His music transports you from the cacophony of life to a cabin deep in the Norwegian wilderness. As you lay your head on the piano, everything else fades away. It's just you, Otto, and the piano, a fragile, beautiful and intimate space, making way for quiet introspection. And I'd say, well, that pretty much sums it up for me. Have a listen to it, see what you think. It's quite consistent in its tone throughout the record, but it just does change quite a lot. But the mood is very similar all the way through the record, and the three records, in fact. And it's well worth a listen. Okay, see what you think. Okay, and that was Otto Totland. Hope you liked that. Next one I wanted to talk about is a guitar solo record, and this is by a chap called Nathan Salsburg. This is his third solo album, I believe, and it is duly entitled Third. Brilliant. Nathan Salsburg, there we go, sleeve. He's from Louisville. This is from 2018, this particular release. No Quarter Records, I believe, which I've never heard of before, but there you go. So this is, he's had a more recent album than this. But this is the one I tend to go back to again and again for him. If I always think of this as like, it's just a gorgeous sounding guitar record. If you were, I don't know, camping or away for the weekend and with a bunch of friends, and somebody pulled out a guitar, or you're in a lovely warm pub with an open roaring fire and someone pulls out a guitar, and you kind of think, okay, what's this going to be? This is exactly what you might hope it's going to be. It's just kind of lush and beautiful. And if this is your kind of music, then you just feel instantly at home with this music. You may have never heard of it before, but it feels like coming home in a way. I couldn't say more than that about it. The cover, the design is by Mark O, or Ohi, and the paintings are by Sarah Lasley. There's a kind of thrill in hearing an album like this that's just so gorgeously and intuitively played with a kind of real kind of warmth and love and energy to it that is a very beautiful record indeed. I would say as guitar work goes, I mean, it's acoustic guitar, it's kind of a finger picking style. He's obviously a real kind of virtuoso on his instrument, and you can really feel that. What else to say about it? It runs about 35 minutes long, I think, and it was mastered in Louisville. So you got that sense of Americana to the playing, to the compositions, and yeah, it's just a beautiful record. Have a listen, see what you think. Okay. So that's Nathan Salsburg and Third, and a very beautiful record. I think you'll agree. There are no overdubs. There are no lyrics. It feels like someone just pressed the record button and he just recorded the whole album. It feels very, very natural in that way. Okay, on to the next one. Number 4 is a jazz piano solo record by, excuse me if I butchered your name, Kjetil Mulelid, I think is the name, Kjetil Mulelid. And this album is called simply Piano. Kjetil music usually plays as a trio, the Kjetil Mulelid Trio. This is one of their records. And this particular record he recorded on his own in lockdown. For fairly obvious reasons, he couldn't get together with his other musicians, and recorded this one in 2021, I think was the release. And this is on Rune Gramophone, and this features the sleeve artwork of Kim Hyorthoi. Again, sorry about the pronunciation. And Kim does paintings, illustrations, artwork for a whole bunch of records on Room Gramophone, which is based in Norway, I believe. Anyway, this particular record, so I think it had been suggested to Kjetil a few times to record a solo jazz album, and he resisted for a while, but when COVID came along he decided to give it a go, and this is the result of it. And I think a kind of solo jazz piece is often thought of as being one of the most difficult things you can do within jazz music in some ways. It tends to be a slight rarity. So I think it was recorded on a piano that is not a modern piano. It's an older piano from 1919, I believe, and a Bossendorfer grand piano, whatever that is, and it has a particular sound. It's very well recorded record. It feels like you're sitting next to him. It doesn't feel like it's recorded in a concert hall. Really, it feels very close and intimate, and kind of closely mic'd in that way. And also, it doesn't feel like an out-and-out jazz record. There are more jazz-like parts of it, and then other parts of it feel more like a modern classical in a way, or something else, like a slight hybrid of things. But it's a very beautiful record, and I did find a little quote about it, which says, and the music is at once youthfully alive and maturely reflected. It is melodic, lyrical, harmonious, joyful and playful sometimes, but also melancholy, full of pain and sorrow, loneliness and longing. The sound, on the other hand, is bell-ready, clean material. That was Ivan Rod saying there. Yeah, it's a very lovely record, well worth having a listen to. One of my favourites, as I say, when I'm just going for something very simple, usually on a Sunday morning. So give it a listen. This is Kjetil Mulelid and Piano. So that was Kjetil Mulelid and Piano, and very lovely it was too. I hope you agree. Okay, final record I wanted to talk to you about or show to you is, I've got a few notes as well, this one, which is a record called Four Hands by Roedelius Story. And this is an interesting record. This is a modern classical record by two pianists called Tim Story and Hans Joachim Roedelius. Now, Mr. Roedelius is from Germany, I believe, and Tim Story is American. And this record was made in Idaho in the US on one piano by these two musicians at separate times. So, as I understand it, Mr. Roedelius laid down certain improvised pieces. Some pieces he's written, some pieces improvised, and then Tim Story listened to those tapes and he added to them on exactly the same piano and changed pieces, and so it's a kind of a layered conversation, if you like, in constructing a piece of music by two slightly separate minds, or two separate musical inputs, but both on the same instrument. So it is a solo, but just constructed in a kind of slightly unusual way. Now the cover is by Bernd Kuchenbeißer. Sorry if I mispronounced that. And the photograph on the front cover is by Tim Story himself. This is a modern classical piece. It's quite gentle, it's quite playful in a way. It kind of experiments and pushes in different ways, and it's a very kind of consistent piece in terms of its kind of mood, and this is a very lovely kind of record again to kind of start a day. Again, this is a lovely Sunday morning record for me, and it's a lovely kind of gentle introduction to a day, I find. I have a little quote here from Tim Story himself. He says, "Together we shaped the basic compositions, sometimes carefully preparing the piano with various materials, including my own hands, and Achim's performances were committed to tape. I continued to compose and refine my parts in the following months. Because it was all recorded on the same piano, the result has a very appealing consistency of sound, and hopefully blurs our individual contributions into a single integrated voice." So, yeah, have a have a little listen to that. That's Roedelius' story and Four Hands, and I'll leave it there. So I'll add a little sample of the music. But thanks very much for watching. Good to see you, and see you again. Okay, bye for now. Bye bye.